The cabin jolted so hard that the coffee leapt from its cup and painted the aisle in brown arcs. Somewhere near the wing, metal screamed, a thin, tearing sound that crawled through the bones. The flight attendants froze mid-step, eyes wide, hands braced against seat backs. And in row 8, the quiet single dad who had spent the whole boarding process apologizing for existing lifted his head for the first time, as if he'd been waiting for this exact note in the orchestra. People noticed him then, not because he was loud or large, but because calm moved differently. It settles instead of scatters. He unbuckled slowly, glanced toward the window, then down at the floor, like a man counting heartbeats. His son, Noah, small and thin as a sparrow, looked up at him with the trust only children still have. "Dad," he whispered. "It's okay," the man said, voice low and steady. "Just stay with me." They had boarded an hour earlier. Row 8, seats B and C, middle and aisle. The man had asked for nothing, taken what was given, folded himself into the space. He wore a faded jacket with a frayed zipper and shoes polished out of habit rather than wealth. He'd let others rush past him, absorbing elbows and sighs. When the overhead bins filled, he tucked their backpack under the seat without complaint. People had opinions about him before they knew him. Some thought tired. Some thought unlucky. A few thought invisible. Noah pressed his forehead against his father's arm. "Are we gonna die?" The question was small, almost polite. The father closed his eyes for a beat, not to pray, not to panic, but to choose his words carefully. "No," he said. "We're going to help." The second jolt came harder. A shrill alarm followed, then the unmistakable drop in engine noise. The cabin filled with murmurs that climbed into cries. The intercom crackled. A flight attendant's voice tried to sound like the sky was still under control, but it shook, just enough to give itself away. "Ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated with your seatbelts fastened." Row 8 watched the aisle tilt as the plane banked. The man felt the change in pitch like a sentence cut short. He leaned forward, eyes scanning the cabin, the door, the angles. He took in details without moving: who was crying, who was frozen, who might need help. He felt his pulse slow, a strange mercy, when the intercom crackled again. This time it wasn't a rehearsed voice. It was sharp, clipped, carrying urgency. "Is there anyone on board with aviation or military flight experience? Please, anyone." The words hung in the air like a flare. People looked around. A man in row 14 raised his hand halfway, then dropped it. Someone laughed nervously, then stopped. In row 8, the quiet single dad stood. He didn't rush. He didn't announce himself. He placed a hand on Noah's shoulder. "Stay here," he said. "Eyes on me." Noah nodded, knuckles white around the armrest. The father stepped into the aisle. He met the flight attendant's eyes, and something in his face, old discipline, unborrowed confidence, made her straighten. "I can help," he said. They led him forward. The cockpit door opened, and the smell of hot metal and fear poured out. The pilots looked like men who had done everything right and were running out of sky anyway. Sweat shone at their temples. Hands flew over switches. One engine was gone. The other coughed, unstable. "What's your background?" the captain demanded. The man didn't list medals. He didn't recite units. He didn't inflate. "I flew," he said. "A long time ago." The first officer glanced at him, then back to the instruments. "What's your call sign?" The question wasn't ceremonial. It was a key. It asked, "Who are you when it's dark and loud and failing?" The man paused. He thought of a desert night, a radio crackling, a voice that never came back. He thought of a promise made to a woman who had believed in him more than he had believed in himself. He thought of a hospital room, the smell of antiseptic, the weight of a baby placed in his arms after the world had already taken its cut. Atlas, he said. Used to be. They didn't ask more, they moved aside. He took the jump seat like muscle memory never sleeps. His eyes traced the gauges, the numbers arranging themselves into a story he could read. He spoke in short sentences. He asked for airspeed. He asked for altitude. He asked what had failed and when. He listened without interrupting. Okay, he said finally. We can keep her flying. The captain stared at him. For how long? Long enough, Atlas said. If we stop fighting her. The plane shuddered again, but less violently this time. In the cabin, people felt the change without understanding it. Panic thinned, like fog lifting. Row 8 sat very still. Noah counted the seconds between the jolts like his father had taught him when storms came. He remembered late nights at the kitchen table, homework spread out, his dad's hand steady over his when numbers got scary. Breathe, his dad would say. Problems don't like being rushed. In the cockpit, Atlas talked the pilots through a narrow band of mercy, speed not too fast, not too slow. He rerouted power. He told them to trust the airframe, to let the plane do what it was built to do. He asked for the nearest runway, then dismissed it. Too far, he said. We're going to need water. Silence fell. You're talking about ditching, the first officer said. I'm talking about landing, Atlas replied. Just softer than usual. The captain swallowed. I have, Atlas said, and his voice was gentle. And you're not alone. They descended. The ocean rose. Atlas explained the angles, the timing, the moment when fear would lie to them and they would have to ignore it. He told them what to say to the cabin, not everything, just enough. Honesty, trimmed of cruelty. In row 8, the announcement came. Brace positions. Instructions. A prayer someone forgot they knew. Noah reached for his father's jacket sleeve, and the flight attendant knelt beside him. Your dad is helping, she whispered, eyes bright. He's very good. Noah nodded, fierce. I know. The impact was not a crash so much as an argument between gravity and hope. The plane skipped, slammed, then slid. Water roared. Screams broke and then dissolved into coughing and laughter and sobbing. Emergency lights flickered. The world tilted, then steadied. They got out. One by one. Shoes abandoned. Hands grabbing hands. The sea was cold, but life was warmer. On the wing, Atlas stood last. He watched the pilots shepherd the final passengers into rafts. He turned back once, touched the cockpit door like a farewell, then climbed down. When everyone was accounted for, he found Noah wrapped in a blanket, eyes huge, grin unstoppable. The boy launched himself into his father's arms. You said we were going to help, he said into Atlas's chest. You were right. Atlas held him, breathing in the salt and the miracle. Around them, strangers hugged strangers. Someone started clapping. It spread, awkward and beautiful. Later, on the rescue ship, the captain found Atlas again. We owe you our lives, he said. Atlas shook his head. You flew, he replied. I just reminded you how. News came. Questions came. Cameras wanted a hero with a sharper edge. Atlas declined interviews. He signed paperwork, answered what mattered, and disappeared back into the crowd. Weeks later, back home, life returned to its small, brave shape. School mornings. Lunches packed. Bills paid one careful check at a time. On a quiet evening, Noah asked, why don't you ever tell people what you did? Atlas smiled, a little sad, a lot proud. Because, he said, most of what matters doesn't need an audience. He tucked Noah into bed. The house settled. Outside, a plane crossed the night sky, its lights blinking steadily. Atlas watched until it was gone, then turned off the lamp. In row 8 of the world, he would always sit quietly, ready, carrying what needed carrying, until the engines failed and someone asked for a call sign.